Hi everybody, welcome back to another very exciting Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. I am your host, Jesus Ramirez. How are you guys doing today? Happy Monday. I already see a lot of action going on in the chat. Oh man, I'm scrolling up just to see everybody who's here. I want to just say hi to everybody. Adobe Live is here. Jack, Baldeir, as always. Mia, Carla, Cindy, Judith, Claudia from Print My Soul, Paco, Andreas, Wolfgang, Lawrence, how are you guys doing? Let me know where you're watching from. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a beautiful morning, and today we're going to be doing another Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. Today we're going to work with removing distracting objects from a photo using Content-Aware, the Spot Healing Brush tool with Content-Aware, and the Patch tool. So let me know if you guys are familiar with that or if you guys are interested in learning more about it. And actually, I just realized that I forgot to turn off my phone, so I don't want to get any notifications. So let me just disable that, and I'm going to put that off to the side. Awesome. We got Colleen from Syracuse, New York. I hope you guys are doing well out there. Ignacio from Buenos Aires. Buenos dias. We got Sean from Germany. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Before we get started, I'm going to show you my screen and show you this awesome page. This is behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. And from this page, make sure that you click on this big blue button so that you get notified via the Creative Cloud for these daily creative challenges. So make sure you click on that button. It'll read your name. Hi, whatever your name is, take the challenge, click on it. That way you're notified and you don't miss these daily creative challenges. Also, before we get started, make sure that you scroll down because every day these boxes unlock. In today's box, this one here, March 23rd, we're unlocking the Content-Aware Fill box. Make sure that you click on the Get Started button so that you open up this Dropbox link, and in here you'll find a PSD, this photo here that I shot in Valencia, Spain, and just download it onto your computer. And when you download it onto your computer, you're going to be able to open it up in Photoshop. And this is the file that we're going to work with today. So I'll give you a couple of moments to do that. Let me just minimize this and go back onto my browser. Another thing that I wanted to mention before we get started is that I've created a project on my Behance profile. So if you go into behance.net/JR from PTC, you'll go into my page here, and I think there's a link somewhere there on the chat where you can click on my name too, I believe, and you'll get here. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I've created a project with the Daily Creative Challenges. So you can click on the Daily Creative Challenge project that I made, and you can see the before and after of the challenges that I've done. So these are my before pictures and my after pictures. And you can click on Watch the Replay button so you can see the replay for that particular project. So this is what I've made on the projects that I worked on last week with you guys. So if you want to see my final results, you can come into this Behance page and check it out. Also, for those of you that missed it last week, I also did an Adobe Live with Lightroom presets. So you can check the replays here as well and see my final results as well. So make sure that you come and check these out. They're at my Behance page, behance.net/JR from PTC. And I would highly encourage you that you take the work that you create, and once you're happy with it, take it into Behance. If you're not sure about the work that you create, if you have questions, you have some concerns, well, what you can do is go into the community chat, back again on behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. You can click on this community chat link to open up Discord, and from Discord you can click on current challenge, and this is where we can give you feedback on the work that you create. So if you have any questions or comments on the work that you're working on or the streams themselves, you can come in here and post your work and we can give you advice on how to improve it. So make sure that you check it out, behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, and then click on the join community chat. Also, you can go onto the link right above my head here and you can join the community that way. So before we get started, let me just take a look at the chat one more time. Make sure that there's no questions, no comments, no concerns. We got Nuruddin from India. Hey, how's it going? Awesome. We got people from Egypt, Guadalajara, Mexico. Awesome. Actually, I don't know what the date is today. Not today. I was supposed to be there for a Adobe conference like 2 weeks from now. Unfortunately, that has been postponed. Bradley Beach, New Jersey, Santa Barbara, California. Awesome. Sends Jesus a text. Was that Howard Pinsky texting me? I just got a notification. It was probably Howard. That's what he's referring to, I'm sure. We got Chicago. We got Syracuse, New York. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. So let's just get started with the project. So again, if you haven't already, make sure that you go into behance.net/challenge/Photoshop and click on the Get Started button so that you can download that photo of Valencia so that you can work alongside with me. And obviously you can look through your library of photos and find one that you want to work on and then apply the things that I do to my photo to your photos, which is the point of this whole thing. So make sure that you find a photo in your library that you want to work on if you don't want to use the one that I'm using, but you're free to use mine if you like. So let me go into Photoshop, and this is the photo here. It's a okay photo that I shot with my cell phone, and this is one of the historical center. I think it's a plaza in the historical center, and I just shot this photo, and it was a beautiful morning, and I just want to enhance it a little bit to make it look better. But I also don't like a lot of the distractions that the photo has. Like, I really like this old colonial look, so I want to remove these power lines, and then we have a vendor here in these baskets, and there's also people, you know, off to the side, just here. And if you scroll down, you'll see that there's trash. So I just want to remove all those little distracting elements just to have a much more pleasant photo to look at, something that could look a little nicer. So we're going to work with several tools: Content-Aware, Spot Healing Brush Tool, a little bit of the Clone Tool, and the Patch Tool to work on this image. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a new layer. So I'm going to click on the side of the layer, on the side of the image here, and create a new layer. And this is going to be for the power line. So I could actually name my layers so that I could know what they are controlling. So I'm going to remove the power lines, and the power lines are really easy to remove. All you need to do is select the Spot Healing Brush Tool, make sure that Content Aware is selected in the options bar, and also make sure that you check Sample All Layers. That way, when you paint over these power lines, you generate new pixels. See how it just disappeared as soon as I clicked and dragged over the power lines? Here's another trick for you. Make sure that the Spot Healing Brush Tool is larger than the area you want to remove. You can use the bracket keys on the keyboard to increase or decrease the size of the brush. See that? And you could click and then hold Shift and click again, and Photoshop will make a straight line between those 2 points. And if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. This is actually a difficult area just because we have the other power lines right next to that, but I can just come in and paint over these and they should disappear. And if you start seeing blurry edges or like the actual line that I've made when I painted, just make smaller strokes side to side like so that you could heal those areas and you can't really see that stroke that you made. So see that? So the power line disappeared. And I'll quickly work on the other power line. This one's not that difficult to remove, but the one after that will be. So let me just get rid of this one really quickly here. And it looks like Photoshop was thinking for a little bit, but it's all right. There it is. I'm just, again, going side to side to remove that stroke that I sent. So let me see if there's any questions. I saw refreshing a browser, but it looks like only one person's having an issue. I don't think it's an issue for everybody. Awesome. So I hope you get that worked out. So what I'm going to do now is do the same thing, but I'm actually going to stop before I get to the end because you'll notice that the power cables are really close to the building here and really close to this other area on this side. So what I'm going to do is just click and drag and paint to remove the power line from these areas. And again, it looks like Photoshop is picking up this second power line, so I'll remove that as well. And I'll just keep painting. It's so funny because when I practice this, like, they disappear like without any issues, and now during the live I'm having all these little issues, but that's okay. You guys get to see how I fix these little problems as they come up. I'm just painting over and over again in these areas, and that's fine, no problem. And I'm not going, as I said, I'm not going all the way to the edge of the buildings because I'm going to use a different technique for that. If I paint too close to the edges, like you'll see here, then in this case, it didn't do that bad of a job, but you still get that edge. I guess it's okay if we zoom out in some areas where you actually want the detail to stay and not get any weird pixels. What you need to do is zoom in really, really close. And then with the clone stamp tool, you can just hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click to set a sample source, and then you can clone those pixels in to this area. Also make sure that Sample All Layers is selected. So once again, let me hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click, and notice that I'm gonna match the edge of the building and paint and duplicate those pixels. And actually right there I did a mistake. I actually duplicated the power line, so let me undo that and make sure that I only duplicate the pixels of the edge of the building and only paint those in like so. Much better. And then now that I've painted those pixels that are close to the edge of the window, I can click and drag, or not window, the building, I can click and drag and paint those away. So I'm just gonna work on these really quickly just because I wanna get to the next step, but I wanna make sure that I have no power lines in this image. Also, another thing with these power lines here that are going into the building, you can't really see them, so I wouldn't necessarily make a line all the way across the building. What I would do instead is just maybe click once or twice so that I remove the lines in the areas that are most noticeable, because I want to keep as much of the original detail as possible. But then they'll get those lines that remain, they're going to get hidden over the overall image, and I don't think it'll be a big deal. See, right here, it's going to be really difficult, so let me see if I can do a good job with the spot healing brush tool. If not, I'm going to have to come in with the clone stamp tool, and it looks like I do need to do the clone stamp tool here, so I'm going to undo that. And see, you always got to look for the right tool for the job. So in this case, the spot healing brush tool is just too difficult to work with because this power line is just way too close to the building. So if one technique or tool doesn't work, then try a different one. That's why we have so many tools that do similar things. And I'm already noticing that although I fix one area, I'm creating more problems. So let me show you what I mean by that here. I created that stroke and it doesn't look natural. So I can come back with the spot healing brush tool, make a larger brush, and then just paint over that stroke to try to remove it so there's no visible stroke. Next, I'm going to, again, select the clone stamp tool, hold Alt or Option, and then just paint in or paint away the power line that was going over that cable, like so. So when I double click on the hand tool, you can see that most of the power lines are gone. I'm not gonna finish working on the little details here because I wanna move on. We don't have a lot of time and I wanna show you other cool techniques. So you'll notice that in this layer, we created all these different pixels that are hiding the power lines below. See that? Before and after. Super cool. And what we're gonna do now is work on the people that you see standing here. You see that? There's like a person here selling something, and it just takes away from the photo. I don't think it looks good. So we're gonna use Content-Aware Fill to remove him from the photo. So I'm just gonna select the background layer. Then I'm gonna go into Edit, Content. Actually, I need to unlock the layer. Let me unlock the layer by clicking on the lock. Edit. Why isn't it my Content-Aware Fill working? Do I have a selection? I'm not sure. Let me see. Oh, well, of course it's not working. I haven't made a selection. So with my background layer selected, I'm just going to select the area that I'm going to remove. See that? See, oh, I forgot that I needed to select the pixels that are going to disappear. So yeah, so you got to make a selection first of the things that you don't want. And once you made a selection, and notice that this selection is very loose. It's not accurate at all, but it just takes the entire part that I want to remove. And I'm going to go into Edit. There it is, Content-Aware Fill. That's going to bring up this workspace that should automatically remove the person, and it did. But the problem now is that I'm selecting other pixels, and I'll zoom in so that you can see. I'm selecting other pixels that I really don't want in that fill. So what I could do is zoom out on this image, maybe to like 200%, and just paint away by clicking on this minus in the options bar here with the paintbrush, and just click away the pixels that you don't want the selection to affect, like the steps and that bag there on the side, maybe the ground here. So paint those away and then see what result you get. And that's better Still not perfect, but better. So I'm just gonna keep painting these pixels away and see what results we get. And if the result is not what you want, that's okay. We're gonna keep working on it. See, like for example, this result is good enough so that we can keep working on the image. It's not perfect, but we're not looking for perfect. We're just looking for good enough so that we could continue working with it. So I'm just gonna press OK and apply this and just work with what we got. And I'm going to press Control D, Command D on the Mac to deselect, and you can see the before and the after. Not perfect, but that's okay. We're gonna do exactly what we did before. We're going to select the clone stamp tool, and from the clone stamp tool, I'm going to hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac to set a sample source, meaning where am I gonna copy pixels from. So I'm gonna select this edge here and align it to this side, and I'm just gonna paint the bottom part of this area like so. And you can see that once I zoom out, it looks pretty good. You can't even really tell that nothing was wrong on that bottom part. So I got to do the same thing on the top part. I'm going to hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, sample that source, and paint in those pixels. And maybe I can copy some of the pixels from up here just to make sure I have this white part of the building touching the edge like so. Double click on the hand tool. Actually, if you really want to see what the final result is, you got to double click on the zoom tool, which is the view at 100%. But with the hand tool, you'll see the entire image. And when you see the entire image, you'll notice that you really can't tell that something was there before. See that? Before and after. So I didn't do too much work, but I used the tools that were meant for the job. So I used the Content-Aware just to get me started, and once I got started, I just fine-tuned the Content-Aware Fill with the Clone Stamp tool, which is the way that I think you should work. So now if I enable these layers, you can see that I've removed a lot of the distractions from this photo already. Also notice that there's people standing here on the side. What I can do in this case is I could also create a new layer and just do the maybe clone. In this case, I can just clone pixels from up here and paint them away down here like so, and then I could just use this part of the steps to paint away this area. And since they're standing in a very in the very edge of the photo, I don't need to be too precise. You can barely tell. If you make a mistake there, you can just crop it in just a little bit and you get the door back. And I want to remove these objects as well. So this is going to be a combination of tools. So I could do, for example, the spot healing brush tool for these this black thing here, whatever this is. Just remove that away like so. And then for this area here, I can do a combination of things. I could probably get away, to be frank with you, just cloning it away. So let's see if that works. I'm going to select the clone stamp tool, and I'm just going to try to clone it away and see if I could get away with just cloning it. And I think I'll be able to. The key is finding the right areas to copy pixels from. So there you go. That is now gone. So again, just look for different parts of the image where you can take pixels from, where you can copy pixels from, where you think Content-Aware will work better. Content-Aware is just an auto-generated way of filling in pixels. Photoshop looks at the surrounding areas. With that green overlay, Photoshop determines what pixel. That green overlay simply tells Photoshop what pixels to use to generate that fill. So just figure out what works best for you. Now here we have an interesting case right down here. And notice how there's this piece of trash that's going over this particular area here that has a design. And if I were to do Content-Aware and all that stuff, it might not work that well. Let's try it and see how it works, just to get an idea of how the Content-Aware with the spot healing brush tool would do. So I'm going to click and drag, and it doesn't do that bad of a job, but notice that I lost the detail that was here, and I at least want to have some detail there that sort of implies the original detail. It'll never be the same, it'll never be perfect, but I know we can do better. So I'm going to undo, and what I'm going to do instead is nested under the spot healing brush tool, you'll see the patch tool. And the patch tool allows you to, and I'll do it in a different area so it's easier for you to understand. I'll do it in this area here. In the patch tool, what the patch tool does is it allows you to make a selection, so you can click and drag and you'll make a selection around anything that you want. And then you can click and drag it to another area to sample pixels from. And then those pixels that you sample will be placed on top of here. But it will do a luminosity match. So let me show you how that works. I'm gonna click and drag this over. And by the way, with this tool, you can't work on a blank layer. So to work non-destructively, what you need to do is duplicate the background. So I'm gonna go into the background, click and drag to duplicate it, and I'll call it patch tool. So we know that that's the one that we're gonna edit. Patch tool, and we leave the original one intact. So what you can do is click and drag it to another area. See that? See how I'm gonna hover over this area that has some of that texture from the ground, and when I release, that texture gets applied to the area where that piece of trash was, and it matches the luminosity and the color. Isn't that awesome? So Command D to deselect. You can see the before and the after. And if there's areas that you don't like, you can come back and make a selection, and again, find an area to sample from, and it magically removes these pieces of trash on the floor. And the cool thing now is that if you go into this area here, we can actually make a regular selection. You don't have to use the patch tool for a selection. You can just use any tool for a selection. So I'm just going to use the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm just going to make a selection around the piece of trash, like so, right? So now that I made my selection, I can go into the patch tool, and I can just click and drag the patch tool into another area with similar detail, maybe there, and release. And notice that Photoshop matches the detail onto the ground. And again, if there's areas that you don't like, you can click and drag, and you can move to different areas to continue patching. So it's totally up to you. You may not get it right the first time, and that's okay. Just keep trying until you do. But once you zoom out, you'll notice that the piece of trash that was on the floor is gone, and we still get the detail here. See that? See how we didn't lose the detail like we did with the spot healing brush tool? So that is one thing that you can do in order to not get rid of the trash. We got about 2 minutes, so let me try to do one more thing. Actually, this is not really going to help in this case, but I want to show you guys something with the patch tool. So with the patch tool, right now we have source selected, but watch what happens. Let me just show you this. So I'm going to have I'm going to make a selection here, right? And I'm going to click and drag over to this area, and that removes the cracks, right? No more cracks. So that was with source selected. But watch what happens if I select destination. I can click and drag these cracks over, so now that area has cracks. So if you wanted to add, texture, detail, in this case cracks, to another area, you can use this tool as well. Just make sure you set destination. In this case, we were removing things, so we were looking for the source. So we're gonna take the source and drag it over to another area, and we're gonna sample from that other area. But if you want destination, then the pixels that you have in the selection, you can drop those in a different area and apply them to wherever you drop them. Like in this case here, just duplicated that crack. So source and destination. For today's challenge, you're most likely going to use source for everything. So I just wanted to let you guys know, and we can leave the crack there, that's fine. So I can take all these different layers now. So hold shift, click on the bottom layer, hold shift again, click on the bottommost layer, and hold, right click, and select convert to smart object. Now that it's a smart object, we can control it as one single photo, and we can go into filter, camera raw filter. You guys know that this is one of my favorite filters. And from here, we can treat it just like any other photo. So we can maybe brighten up the highlights, the shadows, to bring in more detail from the shadows, darken the highlights to bring more detail in the highlights, add a little bit of vibrance, which is a smart way of adding saturation. It protects already saturated pixels and skin tones. And maybe we can add a little bit of a vignette, not too much, just a tiny little bit, like so. And obviously we can spend all day fine-tuning the image. The last thing that I'll do is I'll increase the texture just to really bring in the bricks and all the cracks and all the texture in this image, and I can press OK. Actually, I forgot one thing. I'm going to go back into the camera raw filter. That's why it's good to work non-destructively. You can always make changes. You can go back into the transform tool and just hit the A for auto upright so that Photoshop removes the perspective and lines look straighter. And that's the before, and that's the after. So I'm gonna look in the chat to see what you guys are saying. Awesome. I gotta get going and like now, but before I do, I just want to remind you guys that you need to go into behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. Make sure you click on the big blue button to take the challenge. Make sure that you join the community chat so that you can go into Discord, and under Discord, under current challenge, make sure that you submit the work that you've been working with me last week and this week. Today is challenge number 5. You can see here that people have been submitting the sports poster, the match the background with foreground image, the dance poster that we created. So a whole bunch of amazing work. Make sure that you submit today's work in here as well. And if you want to see what I've been working on, make sure that you go onto my Behance page. JR from PTC is my handle, and you can click on the Daily Creative Challenge project so that you can see the work that I've done. Let me see any other housekeeping things. Oh yeah, Paul Tranny's up next. I believe he's doing hand lettering in fresco, so make sure that you stick around and check him out. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I will be back again tomorrow for another Daily Creative Challenge. I hope that you have a wonderful day. All right, guys, thanks so much, and stick around. Paul Tranny's up next. See you guys.